On today's History of Politics, we're going to talk about Article 5 of the Constitution. And Article 5 is directly related to the beauty of the Constitution. The fact that the framers realized that they did not know everything. And they made a provision because they were aware that there were things that would have to be corrected over the course of time. They knew that things changed. We spoke about this a little yesterday. They knew that things change, times change, people change, society changes, and they wanted to be prepared for that. And what they did in Article 5 is they gave us the provision in order to make those changes. They established a way or rules to properly amend the Constitution. Let's talk about that. So, again, Article 5 establishes how the Constitution can be amended rather. The first part is the proposal. Okay, so what has to take place is a proposal of an amendment is produced. Okay, it can be done one of two ways: by Congress, who both chambers, the House and the Senate, have to provide a vote of two thirds in each chamber, in order for the proposed amendment to move forward. There is another option, though, which is by constitutional convention, which requires two thirds of state legislatures, which is 34 states. Those 34 states would have to send a proposal to Congress to vote on it. Okay? Now, this is very important to us right now because there actually is an Article 5 convention being pushed right now. Now, you got to be really, really, really careful and read the fine print if you ever see this, if they're asking for donations or asking for you to join up, because you don't want your name associated with something that's really no good for you. Yes, it does state about term limits. It does ask for term limits, and I agree that there should be term limits, not just on Congress, but on the Supreme Court as well. In the federal courts, I believe that there should be a mandatory across the board, including the presidency. There should be a mandatory retirement age of 70. You cannot serve past the age of 70, whether you're the president, the vice president, any member of Congress, and any member of the sitting justice on the Supreme Court. 70, you're gone. Your 70th birthday, you're out. You can retire before that if you want, but if you want to max it out, 70th birthday is your last day. Period. And if it lands on if your birthday lands on a weekend or a national holiday, the day before, you're done. You're out. So that I agree with. I think we need that because the framers of the Constitution wanted those men with denim, those farmers. They wanted younger people to come in who were more aware of what was going on, who wouldn't use the past as a lawmaking stick for the current, because it just doesn't apply. For example, and we'll touch on this later on, but anything in the Constitution pertaining to slavery from in the original amendments and so forth is abolished thanks to the 13th Amendment. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery. So this is one of those things that we're talking about here, one of those changes. This is what it's all about. So you have to be careful because it's also looking to do other things as well in this constitutional convention, such as strip away parts of the Voting Rights Act of 1964, which was passed and has been legal precedent for years. And they want to strip voting rights away. And this is part of Project 2025, by the way, so that Republicans will maintain a power, a cabal of power at the reins of government. Okay? And there's also talk that it's going to include eliminating the 2-term limit for a sitting president, effectively making him a king, which is what this country fought to get away from. So just be careful of that. Be careful when you hear Article 5 or constitutional conventions, be careful of that. They use something that everybody kind of wants that sounds good, and then they sneak other things in the fine print, just like a contract. So, do yourself a favor, be careful with that. Secondly, Section 2 deals with the ratification of an amendment. And the way that works is if it's done by Congress, it takes a 2/3 vote in the House, a 2/3 vote in the Senate, and 38 states to vote for the proposed amendment to ratify. You need all three of those things, all three. But then it could also be done by state convention, where Congress can specify that state delegations will ratify the proposed amendment. In other words, they're gonna basically shirk it off and say, listen, we don't want to deal with this. We'll leave this one to the states. Let the states decide if we need to amend the Constitution in this way. And again, that's going to be a majority thing. And 9 times out of 10, it's very rarely been used. 9 times out of 10, you're not going to get anywhere with it because not enough states will vote for or against an amendment. It just doesn't work out that easily. So that's not going to happen. There are also some things that are specified that the Constitution cannot amend, that cannot be amended. First and foremost is the fact that the president has absolutely nothing to do with the proposal process. The president cannot propose amendments. He doesn't vote on them. He has no say on it. It's basically left to the states and the Congress because to change an amendment is legislation. It's legal. And according to Article 1, that power rests with the Congress. Another thing is that no amendment can deny a state its equal vote in the Senate without that state's consent. In other words, if Nebraska were to propose an amendment stating that Texas could lose one of their equal votes in the Senate, which they have 2 votes, before that could even be put forth, Texas would have to agree to that, to give up that 1 vote, which they're not going to do, obviously. They're not going to do that. So that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. That's something that you cannot change, that rule. Just like you cannot change it where the president can offer up an amendment or vote on an amendment. Those things, they're just never going to happen. They're unamendable. And finally, any amendment prior to 1808 can affect certain parts of Article 1st. Rather, no amendment prior to 1808 can affect certain parts of Article 1, Section 1 regarding the importation of slaves and the basis of taxation. So here's the thing about that. Again, prior to 1808. But we now have the 13th Amendment. So slavery is abolished. So therefore, there can be no deportation of slaves. However, on the opposite side, the Constitution is clear that the Congress is in charge of collecting taxes. It's given them in Article 1, where they exercise control over the states and United States territories. And it's also given to them in the, I believe it's the 22nd or the 23rd Amendment, that Congress has the power to collect taxes, levy and collect taxes, just so you know. And that's Article 5. We have two more to go, Articles 6 and 7, which we'll cover on Thursday and Friday. And then we're going to get into we're going to do the preamble. And then we're going to do something regarding the whole thing and what it stands for and what it should mean to the average American. Very important. And then we're going to get into some more of the meat and potatoes, some of the things that have historically failed in terms of politics, and some of the things that have been historically good, which are not happening right now, by the way. So, if you learned something today, by all means comment, because political discourse that's respectful is good. But if you post something disrespectful, after I give you back some of what you gave, I'm going to block and delete you. That's just the way it is. Get used to it. If you can't talk respectfully, ask a respectful question. If you can't live without name calling, then if either be prepared to take what you give or keep your mouth shut. Other than that, like, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.